Welcome back to the AI Summit Forecast 25, Day 2. Our first topic today is Revenue Tech Vision and Stack Design, led by one and only Uri Ledergor, Chief Evangelist at Gong. Uri, welcome. Our community is super excited, got a ton of messages. So yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Julia. I'm so excited to dig into the brilliant minds that we have assembled here today. So whenever you're ready, we can get started.
Awesome. Let's do a quick round of introductions, everyone. Amanda, let's start with you.
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Amanda Kalo. I am the CEO and founder of OneMind. I was also formerly the founder and former CEO of a company called 6sense, which Carrie knows a little bit about. So excited to be here today.
Welcome. Who's going to be next? Carrie.
I'll go since I've been called out already. Friend Amanda, and Carrie Cunningham. I work at 6sense now, and I head up a research and thought leadership discipline, which is really cool. And I'm a former analyst, and so I worked with Cirrus Decisions and Forrester for about 8 years, and covering predictive analytics at the time, which is the AI space now. So happy to be here.
Elizabeth.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Elizabeth McCauley, founder and CEO of StartStack. We're an agentic go-to-market services organization. I have a long background in enterprise software and services, and I live at the center of business strategy, product, and go-to-market.
Matt.
Hey guys, Matt Darrow, CEO, co-founder of Vivint here. We raised $130 million to build tools for technical sales teams, including the industry's first AI sales engineer. So we work with enterprises, you guys know, like ADP, Dayforce, and Snowflake, and really excited to be here today.
Last but not least, Glenn.
Hey everyone, my name is Glenn. I'm a co-founder and CPO at Expondi, and the background in multiple tech startups, but Expondi is the first one released 5 years ago, and we're doing a lot better now.
Uri, back to you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here. My name is Uri Ledergor. I'm the Chief Evangelist and former Chief Marketing Officer at Gong, the leading revenue intelligence platform.
Not that you need an introduction, but let's kick it off.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. All right, folks. I have so many questions. I hope we can squeeze most of them into the 1 hour that we have. So we've all seen the tech stack change over the course of the last 2 years. Part of it was part of the economy. Part of it was part of the launch of generative AI and many other changes in the marketplace. Why don't we start with you, Amanda? You were the co-founder and CEO of 6sense. You're now at OneMind. How have you seen the tech stack change in these last 2 years? And what does it look like today compared to what you saw at 6sense a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think we would all say that's hard to say that we can put our finger on where the future is going and where we are today. There are so many amazing opportunities coming into the future with this new wave of generative AI. I think, when I think about the tech stack and the dynamic shift, we were previously building technology, especially in marketing and sales for people, for humans, right? Whereas now we're building technology for our agents, for our what we call superhumans that can participate in conversations. And, it was all about a single source of truth and a record of truth and then actioning off that record of truth, where right now, I think the shift in dynamic between buyers and sellers has happened, where we can put control back in the seller's hands. And I think technology, I don't think we have even, I think we're going to see in a very short amount of time where AI buyers and AI sellers are talking to each other. I know that's really hard for us to imagine that you have an AI that's going to talk to an AI to get the job done, but I think we are there in a very short order of time. And I think some of the incumbents are going to have some challenges kind of moving forward as every good time in transition in our society happens. Some of the bigger guys will have a hard time shifting and turning the ship.
Okay, I have a feeling Carrie has some thoughts on that. Carrie, what do you say?
Well, first of all, I would say I think Amanda was on to something about 10 years ago, and she was right then. So if this is what she's saying now, she should probably pay attention to that. The second thing I think I would say, though, about all of this is that I think it's really important if you're a practitioner in marketing or in sales that you keep your eyes on the prize. What is it that you're actually trying to accomplish and needs to happen over the next few years? And then how can new tools help you do that and not working the other way around? And I think over the years, and Amanda, I think you might agree with this, we've seen it work the other way around a lot, where a lot of people will see the shiny new tool and say, what can it do for me? Well, that's an interesting question. But if you haven't already considered really deeply what do you need done first, then I think you end up going down a lot of paths that are not very productive.
That's a really
that's my
interesting
counter
point of view,
message.
Carrie. I think we're going to have a little discussion about that later, because there are different points of view on balancing between the problem you need to solve and what the technology allows you to solve.
Yeah.
To quote the tired out adage of Henry Ford, if he asked the people what they want, they'd ask for faster horses. But the new technology allowed us to do things that were unimaginable before that.
Right.
So I think there's more than one interesting point of view on that. But thanks for putting a pin in that, Carrie. Matt, I'd love your take on what leaders are getting wrong about AI and its impact on their go-to-market teams. You're at kind of the spearhead of everything going on there right now.
Yeah, I think my one word is speed, and some of the panelists mentioned this already. It's moving faster than I think a lot of go-to-market leaders are even anticipating. And an example of that is like when we were doing our roadshow last month, we were showing things that people thought might be possible 5 years from now. You can actually do them with technology yesterday. And honestly, it freaked a lot of people out, and it made a lot of people mad because they culturally need to catch up to how this work dynamic is changing. And that's the number one thing for me, which is embrace the change. The change is happening quickly, and start to prepare for it, because our teams will never look the same again. Nearly every piece of the go-to-market function is going to have an AI doppelganger that's going to help out and do the actual work. That's the core difference.
Matt, can you spell out for those of us who are not in the weeds as much as you are, what are some of those early appearances of technology? Where are companies already getting results with some of the stuff that maybe some of us still think is futuristic, but it's actually already working?
Well, three examples pop to mind for me, even in terms of tools that not only we're building, but we're adopting. And this isn't 12 months from now. We have more tools that we're using unlike ever before. And it's also because a lot of these are AI native tools where pricing makes it easy to go and experiment because there's not these big upfront commitments. So one big bucket, I think, is virtual workers. I'm not going to make this a Vivint plug around an AI SE, but an AI SDR, right? These are all over the place as well. So we intend to hire multiple virtual teammates in the next 12 months. The second thing is content creation. We've been having a ton of fun there. A little bit of the spicy take is we know that long form content and people reading a lot of assets isn't a thing anymore. And there are so many tools that can help us with video creation, blog creation, testimonial creation, podcast content. There's never been a better way to get your message out using a lot of different experimentation. And then the last thing I'll say is custom builds. You can use tools like LangChain built on top of LLMs and actually build your own custom agents that do amazing things like write LinkedIn posts and social selling for you. And these are three different areas that we definitely experiment in, and we expect this to keep going too.
Interesting. Anyone else on the panel is already experimenting and getting early promising results with AI that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and volunteer something.
Please.
We use AI in all the work we do for operational marketing, content marketing, product marketing, business strategy. And the early results we're seeing for clients we're working with is so stunning, some of the data we even want to publish. Because it's really just, we're proving that you can cut all the fat off of marketing. Marketing tends to be incredibly wasteful. One of the top ways that early companies burn money. And, we're getting ahead of that and pioneering some new capabilities to be able to do that in a much smarter way.
What are those capabilities replacing in what you called wasteful marketing?
A lot of the specificity in how companies go to market. I think people are very overwhelmed by all the AI content, all the LinkedIn messages that are flooding people's inboxes that are not valuable. And so a lot of the AI-driven research and the research that informs the messaging, that informs the strategy, that informs the product marketing, That's really how companies can get back to enterprise value, and try to stay away from the sameness that I think is very obvious when you read AI content.
Interesting. Carrie, it looks like you have a take on this.
I just, I think we use generative AI a lot when we're writing lots of papers. I've got 2 people, and we've written 10 research reports in the last 3 months. And so we use generative AI a lot. We never stare at a blank page anymore. Just there's no reason to do that. But for the most part, what I find when you're doing things like ideation, what's a new way to tell the story? If you ask ChatGPT or another tool for some ideas, you'll get the long list of ideas that everybody else would already have had, and you can cross those off immediately. And it does lead you to some place where now, okay, here's a spark of an idea. If Gen AI didn't think of it, then maybe it's good, right? Or maybe it's interesting, and to go down that path.
That's the
The
second
second-
time I've heard that idea, Karen.
Yeah.
I love that. I just want to highlight that in case folks missed it. One counterintuitive way of using ChatGPT is to actually eliminate the most obvious ideas, because that's what ChatGPT is really good at doing. It's giving you the obvious ideas that everyone has already regurgitated. So if you bring ChatGPT into a brainstorming meeting, say, what are the top 10 ideas for this topic? Those are the first 10 you can probably cross off your list because they've been done and then overdone. So I love that idea. Matt, you have a take on this.
Well, I wanted to chime in because I couldn't agree more with Carrie and Elizabeth. I think why there's so much challenge, why like AI generated content is a little bit of a malaise for folks, is that you're just getting the middle of the bell curve of 10,000 people that already tried to write the same content. And that's just because of the co-occurrence and how these systems work. So then when we're trying to figure out, well, how do we actually get lift and use these applications to do custom things, content creation, it's got to go far beyond the LLM. And I think that's the most important things for GTM leaders to look at too. If the LLM is the brain of the system, you're not going to get the output that you want.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
I have
right.
a little. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to throw in there, I agree with Matt. People do work. AI is part of our process. Whenever I hear humans in the loop, I sort of cringe because that's implying that humans are bystanders. So I think salespeople, go-to-market executives, whatever role people happen to be doing in their domain expertise, when those people become expert AI practitioners, that's really where the magic happens.
I have
Amanda?
I have a little bit of a spicy take on this. So I try to mix it up a little. I truly believe in some ways we're all getting AI wrong across how we use it for go-to-market. We were going back and we're using it. Everybody's looking at this for efficiency gains, for writing better content, for expediting a process. Even Benioff in his keynote at Dreamforce talked about task-based, simple tasks and efficiencies, right? That we can use this for. I think we can use it for something much bigger. I know Jocko from Winning by Design talks about, if you want to grow linearly, hire more people. If you want exponential growth, then you need to think about AI. So how can we use AI? And I am leaning into the concept that this is a new evolution of humanity. We are replacing humans, and AI can do it in a way that humans can't. So humans have capacity limitations. We hire a human as an SDR. We hire it as an inbound. We hire somebody as an AE and then a sales engineer. And then we have our customer success person. The reason we have different roles in these functions is because we have time capacity and content capacity limitations. What if we could start thinking about AI in a way that really can not just augment, but truly lean in and replace some of those functions where there's so much waste and so much spend? 50 to 80% of our budgets are being spent on people across go-to-market. And can do it in a way that at the end of the day, and I think Carrie would agree with me here, is that we need to put control in the hands of the buyers, not in our sellers' pockets. And so if we allow buyers to get at information in an efficient way, the way they want it, meet them where they are on the website, in the Zoom. Hey, let me spin up a Zoom and let me talk to you about your technical requirements. And I'll just end on one quick story. So I didn't share what we're doing, but we are building, for those who don't know, OneMind is building superhumans. It's a face, voice, brain. She can meet you on the website. She can qualify you, give the pitch, give a demo, join a Zoom, answer the hard technical questions, pass it along and respond to your RFP. And then, oh, by the way, onboard you as well. So we're basically building these digital workers, if you will, with a face and voice that can do what a human can do. And I'm in a deep sales cycle with a CRM company right now. I had somebody who was very much against what we were doing, who basically said, no, I'm not having this. And she went and talked to our AI on the website. And then she basically got on the call 2 hours later and said to me, hey, I was like, what'd you think, Pamela? And she's like, I was a no, we're not doing this. We're not bringing this into our company. But I spoke to the AI and I had my 15 technical questions answered. I don't have any questions for you. And now I'm your biggest champion, right? So it can give buyers control, gave her that control in my sales cycle. So I think we're getting it. I think those pieces obvious. Sorry, yeah, I'll stop. Go for it.
I'm smiling because just this morning, Jason Lemkin posted something that made me laugh on LinkedIn. He said that Mark Benioff just announced that he's hiring 1,000 salespeople to sell their new AI agents, which are supposed to help their customers have fewer salespeople. So which one is it? But
right.
Jokes aside, I love that take. Matt, did you have another quick plug before we move on, or you just left the hand up from before?
I did want to comment on Amanda's piece, and I'm glad you went to the spicy take because similar to what I mentioned about the roadshow, that's kind of what frustrated people or riled them up was when you take them all the way there, like that is the logical conclusion, what you just described. Like there's this productivity farce, which is, well, if I make everybody 10 times more productive, then it's great for everybody. But what happens is there's just not that much more throughput in the marketplace that your business can drive. So ultimately what's going to happen is that roles will change hands, responsibilities will change. And I don't know if you want to answer it here. Like I was a believer that what's going to happen is like you're going to get the steel pillars of the organization will remain, say sales rep carrying quota, product person building product, and a lot of the other ancillary functions that were born out of specialization because of time, capacity, mental throughput, that is a kill zone for what agents can do and change that whole dynamic. With you.
I think it'll be really interesting to see how roles and responsibilities are kind of ebbing and flowing in the next few years, and it'll definitely take some time, and the more traditional industries will take longer, as they always do, but it's definitely going to be really interesting, and we're already seeing like very tight small organizations that are hitting milestones that typically you have to be 10x larger in order to hit. So thank you all for a take on that.
I can comment on this for a second because we're reinventing our product management process. We can write PRDs in like a week with all the product requirements and starting from ideation through conversation. So I think to the point of Amanda's the bow tie. I think there's an opportunity. That's kind of the revenue side of things, but also in how AI is supporting, back office, product development. Their AI native companies are going to have fundamentally different unit economics than other companies.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Glenn, last one to take on this question, which I'm glad opened up this discussion.
Yeah, we are already doing this from our support. So basically getting like the biggest pain points, the biggest complication we have in our app. And basically it will help us to brainstorm quicker, to go through ideation quicker. So right now it's already like way more efficient for us. So it's like, I think 40% time saver already. So.
Wow. So Glenn, while I've got you, why don't you kick us off with the next question? Looking at your own tech stack right now, do you expect to be using more or fewer tools in 12 months from now, and why?
I think, to be honest, way more, because every quarter we do a review of everything that we use. But yeah, with the lift with AI, I think in the last week we already started using 10 different tools. So month over month, that rapidly increases, but we'll keep doing that. So basically, implementing it in smaller teams will work better, because if we do it company-wide, it's very tricky, right? So testing it, get quick results, and then rolling it out company-wide is something we do on a weekly basis.
Interesting. Carrie, you speak to a lot of companies in your role as head of research and thought leadership. What are the trends that you seeing? Are companies expecting to use more tools? Or are they expecting to use fewer tools? And I asked this on the kind of backdrop that in the last 18 months, every single CFO and RevOps person I spoke to said that the mandate now is to chop off anything from 10 to 20% of your tech budget. And that led to some inevitable consolidation. Is the market bouncing back? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so I see the same thing. And we did a tech consolidation landscape thing about this time last year. And I think a lot of companies did. Certainly, 6sense has been moving to allow customers to consolidate on platform instead of a bunch of smaller tools. So I think everybody's saying that. But I think in practice, what's actually happening is every time you make a change, it's like a fractal geometry, right? So you look at it from this angle and it's got this characteristics. You pull in a little closer and even at a smaller dimension, it's that way too and that way too. Every time you make a change, you consolidate a little bit or you add another piece of technology, you open up two gaps on either side of it. And those gaps on either side of it get filled with something else and two more gaps and two more gaps. So even when you consolidate, you're sort of, you're the old Irish fable of Cuchulainn fighting with the sea. You're just in the ocean trying to bat the waves back. So I think we're thinking consolidation in order to keep something maybe the same size or not exponentially growing. But I
Your
don't
bottom
think
line is it will definitely grow. The tech
it'll
stack
grow
is constantly growing.
while
The
we're
beast
consolidating.
cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
I don't think it can shrink at this time. Like, I think there are some for the bigger, like more incumbent players, some of the core functionality, it can shrink across those players. But there's so much happening right now, and people are really starting to catch on that they have to do things in a different way. Like, we came up with the idea of AILG, like AI-led growth. And if you're going to do that, that's going to change the dynamic of everything that you need. If you're not serving humans anymore across your sales cycle, you're serving agents that are doing these digital working functions and talking to your buyers. What do we need from a tech perspective? So things are going to shift, and I don't think we know what that looks like yet.
Matt, your quick take on the number of tools growing or shrinking?
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience at Vivint, we did SaaS consolidation, and Gong I think is a relevant example here because we were using Gong for CI, and Gong has a great product with the competition for outreach, and then we just sort of moved to Gong, and I see that happening across like SaaS. That consolidation makes a lot of sense, but I'm with Amanda that like all of our experimentation, all of our new tools is in all of the AI native workflows. Again, whether or not it's digital workers, new workflows, new processes, new data. And that's where I see the proliferation expanding, where I love to consolidate the SaaS stack. And then a lot of these native AI apps, I welcome them in because, again, the way that they monetize, the way that they price, it makes it easy for you to do that experimentation with the right problem in mind.
So if I try to summarize and weave together the different answers that I heard here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing is where there's a category or a workflow that is a little bit more mature. It makes a lot of sense to consolidate. And Matt started the Gong example, so I'll finish it. Gong started out 8 or 9 years ago with conversation intelligence, which then evolved into revenue intelligence. And then 2 years ago, based on a lot of market pull, we added Gong Forecast, which replaces legacy forecasting tools. And then based on even more market pull, especially with the economy that we have, last year we succumbed to the pressure and we released a sales engagement product, which replaces those 10-year-old legacy sales engagement products with an AI native product that was built for 2024 and beyond. And so we've seen Gong Engage and Gong Forecast grow much, much faster than our conversation intelligence product, just because A, we have the install base, and B, the market was ripe for that sort of consolidation. And at the same time, what all of you are saying one way or another is that this is the best time to be experimenting with these next age point solutions that have not yet evolved into a platform because they're so young and they started with a little wedge. But you'd be foolish not to experiment with these things and see where they could add either fewer jobs needed to do the job or more productivity on jobs that we're keeping. Did I get that more or less right?
Yeah, and I would add to that. So the way we think about it, probably similar to Matt, is I don't know if Matt, you're thinking about it this way, but I'm not selling against like a Gong or a 6 Sense, right? And saying that this is a software play. I'm actually selling humans. So you're going to pay for this like a human. You're going to give me upside like a human when a human performs. And if my human performs better, let me have a piece of that pie and I'll give you a smaller, base. And then you're going to charge based on the time that she's in the conversation, the usage component. So we're basically looking at this as you're buying capacity to have conversations and talk to your buyers in a way that relates to them in the most empathetic, real time, wherever they are across any channel way. So I'm really trying to stay away from you're buying software, right? I don't want to, these license fees anymore. We're really starting to relook at this. We do have a base license fee right now, but yesterday we spent 3 hours like saying, maybe we're going to shift this, right? There's more of just you're buying humans, you're buying capacity.
I think you bring up a really important topic that we probably won't have time to dive in today, but that is the emergence of new pricing models where for 25 years, we've all been selling software by licenses. In the last, let's call it 5 to 7 years, we've seen the emergence of usage-based pricing on things like cloud consumption and that sort of thing. And now we're seeing this quick rise of the third one that many companies are already experimenting with, which is around, I'm replacing your humans, so I want to price it that way. But let's not dive into that right now. I do want to take a detour into an audience question that just came up, which is this. I'm interested to hear more about whether or not the panel sees how they're using Gen AI today as a competitive differentiator, or is it just their starting point to get people adopting and comfortable on it? Who wants to take a first stab at that? Go ahead, Matt.
So both, and God, I hate when people say both, but let me go in both routes. I think the first is like earlier this year at Vivint, we bought a license to ChatGPT for every single employee. And the whole reason we did that was it's almost like an ice bath that you give the organization from a culture standpoint, because the point was it's like, hey, look, this is like using the internet, and if you don't know how to use these tools moving forward, like culturally, you're just not going to be in a place to not only be at Vivint but be at any organization under the sun. And that was important to do culturally to set the tone and the signal. But then also the use cases are really odd with Gen AI. It's not like a SaaS app that has 10 declarative things that it does. Like you need to sort of crowdsource creativity to get people comfortable. So I think that's the yes culture internally. But then on the competitive differentiation side, not just us, but that's why our customers want to use these tools, because it 1000% is a competitive differentiation. And I would imagine, Amanda, I'm not super familiar with your guys' service yet, but totally excited about where you guys are going. But if you're doing things like your buyers are engaging directly with AI, I mean, that has a huge impact to how your company is perceived in the marketplace too. You're just perceived as an innovator, a company that others want to be like to do business with. And I think that it's much more than just, wow, are you offloading the work? But it's how you show up in the world. And those companies that are using AI to show up in the world differently are going to differentiate.
Yeah. And on that, I think it's a question. A lot of people ask me, well, will buyers want to talk to the superhuman or talk to the AI? And the response back is we're not forcing anyone. We're giving them an option. Think of what we do to people who go to your website. Like they go to your website, they go to Gong, they have a need. They want to think about like their call reportings and their forecasting. And then they research and look around. They have two options. They can talk to this lurking chat bot in the bottom right that like 2% people do. And it just like, it doesn't work, right? Like maybe it has a small conversion rate, and sure, generative can make it more conversational, but it's not really empathetic. It's not understanding. It's not giving me the pitch. It's not giving me the demo. Or you can fill out a form and wait a week for somebody to call you back. And oh, by the way, if you're an SMB or don't match my ICP, we're not calling you, right? So
the other option, try us. You'll get a call within hours, if not minutes.
I will try. I will go on. But even then, wouldn't you rather, as the owner of your business and your P&L, not put a human that's going to cost $89 an hour if you actually look at their fully loaded cost for a $100,000 BDR, but put an AI that costs a few dollars an hour that can have a much deeper conversation and right there in the spot, right there in the moment when somebody has a need, answer their questions and go as deep as they want to go, not just high level, let me qualify you and do my job. Allow the buyer to ask the questions and take control back in that first touch. Right? So that is the beauty of AI. It allows us to do things that we never could do before. We couldn't even dream of it. I mean, we can't even, I'll give one more point. On a call, a seller cannot bring up a slide in real time when asked a question. If somebody asks me, what's your technical overview? I have it. I'm like, oh shit, it's over here. Let me go grab it from this deck we can't. We don't have that kind of recall, but the AI can. So we can actually meet buyers and do some really basic things that transform the buying and selling experience and really shorten that sales cycle, which we're all looking to do.
Thank you, Amanda. Elizabeth, your quick take on that.
Internal work, definitely a extreme competitive advantage, and it is the work that we do through and through. I would say that I like the whole analogy of the ice bath, but I find that people who are incredibly process oriented, people who love to learn, people who are curious, people that want to figure things out tend to be the most successful in figuring out how to invent new ways of doing things, because I think we've all made the point on this call, the way that things have been done may not be how things will be in the future. I've pushed back a little bit that, and this is my personal preference, I have experienced a sales cycle with an AI native company, and all the AI is in the back, so the people and real human interaction can be in the front, and that's how they've changed, their unit economics of a company. And I think there's still real value from people that are part of a process. So I see kind of where you're going with this, Amanda. I don't disagree. There's huge opportunity, but I'm going to double down that people like relationships, people like and buy from people they trust and respect, and it also kind of depends on what kind of business you're in. If you're in a software-based, high volume widget kind of business, maybe that's okay. But I think that businesses are incredibly complicated, and people need to make sure that they're doing the right things. And I mean, all of us here in technology sales, the technical teams, are always for the win. And I've met my share of architects in my life, and they are very hard to replicate an enterprise architect or people like that with some very, very deep skill with AI. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I
take that as a challenge. I would love to put your people against a superhuman to do the same job, and I bet Matt would do the same.
We have our topic for the next webinar, Amanda. We do need to move on. Carrie, one more take on that, and then I've got another spicy one. I thought the next one's going to be spicy, but you're finding spice in even the most innocuous question, which I love. So thank you, everyone, for the great discussion. Carrie, your last take on this one.
Yeah, this would be a little spicy too, I think. And I'm going to jump a little bit on Amanda's bandwagon. So one, buyers, 80% of buyers do not want to talk to a seller while they're deciding what they want. And they won't. You can't change it. You can email and call them, and they're not going to engage with you. The primary reason for that, I believe, is because they don't want to be pitched. We can say that people like to talk to other people, but no, they don't, because we know what's going to happen if we do. Right? We're going to get pitched. They're going to try to get us to do something that we don't want to do. I am much more comfortable telling a bot to buzz off, I don't want it, than I am another person. Right? So if I have the opportunity to interact and ask questions of a bot, and I don't have to hurt somebody else's feelings or be mean to them or whatever it's going to happen at the end when they try to pitch me, I'm going to do it. And I'm not alone.
You're a much kinder man than I am, Carrie. You should have heard me with some service providers yesterday over the phone. But thank you.
People like to buy, not to be sold to. People want to buy, they don't want to be sold to. And so that you just allow the people to come in to build the relationship, and there are pieces of it, but to get information, there's a much better way. Let my kids jump on my lap and let me learn about Gong, right? I don't have to worry about
Amanda touched on an important thing, which is what stage of the buying process I am, because you're both right. Carrie is right to say that in the early stages, if I'm just trying to get information from 4 different vendors to help me make a decision on how to narrow them down or which one I'm going to work with, I don't want 4 people having my phone number and calling me and pitching me till the cows come home. But at the end of the day, I think Elizabeth is right as well, because once I have chosen my vendor, especially if it's a 6 or 7 figure deal, I absolutely want to talk to human beings. I want them to confirm that they understand my unique security and IT challenges and how they're going to solve it for me. Glenn, bring us home on this one.
A lot is about the intent, right? So if they give certain triggers, like intent triggers, I think you can find the right moment. And by using that, I think the chance of success is 10 times higher. If you combine it with a soft approach, I think instead of like a hardcore, indeed, what you said, if you have like 4 agents directly on top of you, not the right moment, it won't be successful.
Right.
And what we're really talking about here is the organizational intelligence of the sales cycle, and that, we're all making the point here that there's a role for AI at some point in the process. There may be a role for people in the process, but are organizations really intelligent enough to know exactly where that buyer is on their journey and which tools and capability to serve up to keep that journey moving along? And, that is, I think, probably the grand challenge is how do you build organizations that are have this organizational and system intelligence that also includes people. And I think that's probably pretty hard with what we're talking about here.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is let's try and do this in a little bit of a different way so we can actually get through some of the questions. Let's try and do a rapid fire round here where you each limit yourself to like 30 seconds, and I'm going to take a take.
I can't do that.
I know, Amanda, you might find this one challenging. Let's try this. I'll start with you, Amanda. What is one tool or business area that is absolutely ripe for AI disruption right now? But 30 seconds or less. I will cut
Humans.
you off. Go.
Humans. Inbound humans and inbound sales engineers. They're ripe for disruption right now.
Inbound humans, inbound sales engineers. Thank you.
Not inbound sales engineers and inbound BDRs. Yeah, there you go. That was short.
Matt.
Same. It's any role that's a hybrid that has knowledge.
Any knowledge worker? Is that what you're saying? Knowledge worker. That's a specialty worker. Okay, good take. Glenn, what about you?
Support.
Support. That is a big one. We're seeing a lot of companies trying to automate that now. Elizabeth, how about you?
All aspects of the business.
All aspects of the business. Interesting. And you, Carrie?
I'll say all aspects too, but I think enabling buyers to buy without being sold, I think, is a thing that absolutely the first ones to do it well are going to win.
So let's stay with you for a minute, Carrie, and go back a little bit to the number of tools, but do a little bit of a deep dive on the consolidation. So as you mentioned yourself, we've heard a lot about this, and you pointed out some of the problems with the gaps that are left around consolidation. Where do you see this trending, and is 2025 going to be another pivotal year in how companies think about consolidation versus just dispersing everything they need into dozens or hundreds of little tools? I can share that at Gone a couple of years ago, we did an audit. I'm sure we do this more often, but the last one I saw was a couple of years ago. And at a company, we're probably a small enterprise with about 13 to 1,500 employees. We had well over 1,200 different software tools as the company. In my marketing team alone, which is one of the smallest team in the company, there were at least 59 tools in a very old count that we counted. So where are we going with that, Carrie, and how is AI going to change that?
Well, I would say, first of all, AI could make that not matter. Like, so one thing AI could do is say, all right, you've got 100 tools, AI, go make them all work nicely together, and I don't want to think about it again. So that, right? Or we could just take all, I think, Matt said it well earlier, you can take the things that are kind of standard practice things today, consolidate them all down, and then you're continually bringing in new experiments and things that you're going to do, and you're continually realizing new gaps in what you want to be able to do. Your organization is thinking of new ways to add value and all of that, and finding new ways to do it. So I think those two things are both possible, plus probably lots of other stuff I can't think of.
I love what you said about asking AI to fix those problems. Tomas Tungus from Redpoint Ventures, he wrote a really interesting piece a few days ago where he was describing some of his own AI workflows, and he's always kind of trying the cutting edge things. And one thing he realizes that now that he can take a photo of either a piece of code or another resource and show that to a piece of AI, and an AI just reads it and then does whatever he wants with it. He said, like, are we at the end of the need for software integration? Because AI can now see. I don't have to build these complex APIs and integrations. I can see what I want it to see and then just do what I want him to do with that information. So maybe we're heading to a future where AEs don't need to input information to the CRM, nor do any other system that we're integrating in there. What a wild thought.
If you think about any biological system, they're immensely more complicated than any technical system that we have today, and yet they work fine, and we don't think about them and work in ways that are completely flawless. So why wouldn't the technological environment come to mirror the biological one? Everything,
that'd be amazing.
Every cell in your body is dramatically more complex than anything that you know of, right? And it just goes on.
Elizabeth and then Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with what we're talking about here, Carrie's comment, because the context of this conversation is tools, right? And all of the technical debt, where the tools are required to fill in what isn't possible or hasn't been built before. Companies that are born AI native will not have these technical debt problems because AI is an architecture. You could put all the complexity under the waterline and it just works. And that's what will be very hard for mature old companies that have Franken clouds. That'll be really, really hard for them to make that transition to the AI native world. Similarly, how on-premise SaaS companies had a really hard time making the transition to cloud. The difference this time is going much faster, and it's pretty stunning what's possible.
Frankencloud is a good one. Matt, and then Amanda.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on this number of applications and sort of revisit this point, the point I made earlier too, which is I'm definitely not a suggestive proponent for GTM leaders to say go consolidate SaaS and then go get like 100 different AI point solutions out there. The reason why that there's going to be more tools though, and you look at like, well, why is AI just so disruptive? We're not changing form factor. It's not like desktop to mobile. We're not changing infra like on-prem to cloud. The disruptive moment is it's a labor disruption. And this is going back to why Amanda keeps talking about the human side and the workforce side. Like that is what it is at its core. And I think the farce or the angle to go down that you don't want to do is be a GTM leader that's just buying a bunch of like point use cases from AI. What you need to go buy is what does the human do and go get that. And that's how you're not going to end up with this amalgamation of crap that like you go here for research, here for information, over here for another thing, and then all of a sudden I'm using 6 AI tools that are sort of loosely strung together. Because if labor is the core of the disruption, you need to go find what the human does and go get that, and then use it to change your workflow.
Thank you, Matt. Amanda, and then Glenn will close us out on this question.
Okay, so you brought up something earlier where you said we could update the Salesforce records. I think this is one of the places like where we're getting it wrong, is that we're thinking about how we can do what we do today better. Those are incremental point solutions, making what we're doing today with the processes and the limitations of humans better. But instead of how can we update Salesforce instantly and have the right summarization, et cetera, how can we use the conversational data in the next conversation so that I can bring that recall in real time into the conversation to move the deal forward and close business. So the goal is not to make efficiency across what you're already doing, really to think about to the future that our goal is to grow.
Do we need it?
Yeah, it's not growth at any cost anymore, right? We can't just throw money at the problem. So we need to do efficient growth. And it's not about making what we do today slightly better. And I think that's a place that people are sometimes getting this wrong.
Totally agree. Glenn, final words on...
So as a SaaS, we are aiming to be more connectable for AI, right? So that people can build LLMs around our SaaS. So I do think that opens a lot of those human small parts that people want to do. So I do think if every SaaS would do that, it would be way more easier for people to connect to multiple apps in a very short amount of time. So if the SaaS starts actually doing that on their own, I think it will be a lot faster, because basically if people need to really do that on their own, I don't think it will happen very short.
Glenn, let me stay with you for a minute and shift gears a little bit. The bar for developing new software with all the Gen AI tools is now lower than ever.
Yeah.
How do you think that's changing organizations' decisions? How's it changing your decisions on the build versus buy question for your tech stack? You have a specific need. Are you going to consider building it now because it's so easy to build, or at least get started with building? Or are you still going to go out there and look for someone who's been cracking this problem for a couple of years and probably has something that's good enough for you to use?
Yeah, so in the past, I think, let's say from 2 years ago, we would always decide to build depending on our company core values and core value proposition. But I do think in the last months, we definitely decide to integrate or to buy. Yeah.
Interesting. So you're saying that despite the lower bar for building today, you're actually looking externally first now.
Yeah, I mean, you can get competitive advantage very quickly if you adopt other tools, or let's say if you adopt AI built by others. Building it yourself is, but I think only for operational purposes. To give an example, basically what I explained with the support issues, the things that we get, like the feedback we gather, negative pain points, all those things. If we want, there are no models right now. Yeah, maybe Amanda created one, but there are no models right now that would actually combine that, for instance, with our financial data, right? So we use a different financial platform than our support platform. But if you can connect the two, we could do things based on the financial impact instead of only using it for ideation for product, for instance.
Got it. I'd love to get Elizabeth's take and then Matt's.
Yeah, I think
Build versus buy.
yeah, so build by partner, it's a really important decision, and it really depends on what the purpose is of of what you're evaluating, right? If it's part of your intellectual property and competitive advantages, it's probably core to own all your technology. But if it's really just part of an operational process and things that you can switch in and out or even experiment, and some of the things Matt's talking about, makes sense to leave room to be able to do that. So a lot of companies that we're engaged with, that's really the first step, is how do you rapidly figure out what that market opportunity is and what you should, build and what may already exist that fits nicely into your stack.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Matt.
I was going to add on the build front. I think it's a little bit of a false positive that it's so easy to build, because like, go get an LLM, go get LangChain, go sling some Python, and you're going to make something that you just scared yourself about. And that's good. But if you're going to do the work a human does, it won't cut it. And I think why the builds are so hard, and Amanda, if you're in the same track that I am too, you know this, like knowledge management, recall, memory, learning, like the LLM does not do any of that. And unless you have hyper specialization in ontology building, design, memory, learning, recall, understanding, those are the things that there's IT teams don't know how to do that. And I think that's why the build versus buy is a little bit of a farce. Like if you want to do an LLM wrapper, cool, go do it. But that's not going to live up to the promise and the premise of Gen AI, which is labor disruption.
Yeah,
Amanda,
I
I
agree.
just know you have a take on this.
Well, obviously, I'm gonna say buy on especially what we're doing, and it's like what Matt said. It's the final mile, right? You can go buy an LLM, and you can put a face on it, you can put a voice on it, but is she gonna know when to speak in conversation? Does she have active memory? Does she have passive memory? Is she able to pull up the right slide? And as we all know, it's that final bit, anytime we make one small change, everything can be out of whack again, right? So it's an art
Like
and a
changing
science.
a table in Microsoft Word, right? Try moving
It
an
is
image.
really difficult, right? Like there is that fine balance. And then there are tricks that you learn along the way. And then, knowing who she's speaking to and pulling all the information in and then sending it to the next place, like the downstream systems that she's going to go. Yes, some of the core can be done, but there are so many micro, and we call them the AGI challenges. Like we're trying to get as close to the human experience as we can to recognize emotion, be able to read emotion, play that back, know when they say no, they actually meant yes, or vice versa, et cetera. Those things are difficult problems. And they're the small problems that add up to a solution that will really work in terms of replacing humans. Yes, can we all do create our own chatbot? Yes. But is it going to be good enough to put in front of your customers? Probably not.
Thanks for that take, Amanda. Carrie, coming back to you and to the discussion that we pinned earlier today, how much of your tech stack decisions are based on a problem you need solved versus wanting to explore the potential of new technology like Gen AI? So I'd love to hear your perspective and what you're seeing out there with companies that you're speaking with.
Yeah, so I think you can think about it top down or bottom up. Bottom up being there's stuff that we can do, so which of this stuff should we do? Top down being what are the things that we really should be doing? And I think to everybody's point, especially Amanda, there's a lot of things that we're doing in B2B and go to market that we shouldn't be doing, that we're doing because it's the legacy of how it was built and all of that. But there are lots of things that we could or should be doing that we're not doing. And I think the way to understand that is to understand your buyers and what your buyers' needs are, their information needs, what they're trying to accomplish, what's the difficulty in doing it. It takes a buying group of 11 people, about 900 interactions just with vendors, including content interactions, to make a purchase today, and 11 months. So that sucks. Why does that have to be so bad? Maybe it doesn't. And then when you think about what they're doing today, so buyers are going out and they're doing information searches all over the place and Googling. They're not going to be doing that anymore, even next year. So what is your website going to do for them? So I think companies need to be thinking about that. What is it that we actually should be doing to make the experience of buying us and to make our brand preferred? what can we be doing and should we be doing, and how can AI help, instead of, well, here's a bunch of tools and they can do this. Do we need that? Okay, it's interesting, but that's going to lead you to a lot of things that are going to waste your time, or maybe set you up to do stuff that you don't need to be done, that shouldn't be done. And I'm seeing a lot of that. So I'd like to
It
see the
sounds
top
like you're,
down.
you're strongly entrenched in the start with the problem camp, if I
Oh,
get
yeah.
your drift.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and
I'm sure there's some other maybe more nuanced approaches here. Elizabeth, you want to give it a stab?
Yeah, I definitely think the user experience, the buyer journey, all those interactions, when AI should be interacting with buyers versus when things are kind of behind the scenes. So I always index on user experience and the buyer journey. So I think everything starts with process. Many companies don't know what their processes are, which makes it really hard to figure out how does it apply. It's kind of like what's old is new again. Start with the process and figure out how to design from there.
Interesting. Matt, would love your take on start with the problem, or is sometimes starting with the technology a good starting point?
I'll double back and double down on one of my prior answers, which was definitely the problem, because there's got to be a problem, or else you're just sort of wasting everybody's time involved. But the one exception was what I discussed, was on the culture side. I thought that was really important, was just to send the signal to the organization that this is not a trend, it's not a fad, it's not asking people to go and put all your, I'm not going to pay you through blockchain. Like, this is like a real thing that's going on. And so forth. Like, you got to learn it, and that's a cultural change, even though there was no problem. And what happens, like, fun things come out of that, because then when you give people that freedom and then you crowdsource these different use cases, you'll get like finance teams doing modeling without using BI tools or Excel, or you'll get like CSM teams like interpreting usage data for them, on their own. Or you'll even do, like, if you guys, if you haven't done this, sorry, shameless plug for something kind of fun, which was, if you ask AI to go roast your LinkedIn photo, you'll get a really funny response. Like, there's these cultural things that bring people together and start conversations too. But I think that's just like, you want to send the signal that's where the world is going. But if you're going to make a business spend and a purchase, it's got to be around a problem. And the problem always nets down to the core of, it's a disruption of knowledge work. So go find the knowledge work you want to disrupt and go solve it.
All right. Glenn, any take on problem versus technology? Where do we start?
Yeah, usually problem first, right? But technology can also help to explore new things. So it's definitely not only the pain points you're trying to solve. We also test sometimes with AI some new things, and we see that it's pretty successful.
Thank you, Glenn. Amanda, last one to round us out on this one.
I mean, I always say start with the problem, right? So that's always the place to go, and then the technology. But I think we need to not start with problems that we're looking at today, where we think we have issues, but look to the bigger picture, like first team principles, right? So what are we really all trying to achieve? We're all trying to achieve growth, and cut costs, right, at the same time. And how do we do that?
Thank you. So staying with you, let's do this last question that I'll get everyone's take on, and we'll probably end with that. Most of you here are from smaller startups. I think Carrie and I are the only exceptions of like later stage companies right now. And I'm sure many of our audience members are currently either building their startups or working for startups. Amanda, you're closing some big logos in tech, and you're a smaller startup at OneMind. How are you getting in the door, and why are these prospects thinking about bringing in a small player like you versus going to one of the incumbents in the space for their AI needs? And try to phrase this, and this goes for everyone, as a lesson that our audience can take with them today. How can I, as a small native AI startup, make it big out there with large enterprises when there's all these big incumbents around me that I maybe don't think I can compete with? Yeah, well, I have an unfair advantage. So, Carrie, I go back to, it's easy when I say I was the founder and former CEO of 6sense, it opens doors. Like, that is just just a simple fact for me. And I'm proud of everything that 6sense has done, especially since I've left. They've done incredible things, and it's an incredible product. So I don't think that's going to help people out there, but I go back to like my early days of 6sense and how we got that off the ground early.
And for me, it was always about building the relationship. So this is where the human aspect matters, right? So in the early days, I would host events. I started the Empowered event at 6 Cents, and it was never about selling 6 Cents. It was always about bringing together and creating community and providing a space for people to collaborate in a world that they weren't served in their needs. They didn't have that community and that connection. So, I'm always looking for opportunities to connect with people and have a human aspect. And then that gets me in and I can have the conversation and say, oh, and by the way, 2 weeks later, can you connect me to the right people on your team? I can share what we're up to, right? So it's never the hard sell. And it's always really going back to listening to what their pains are, right? So instead of trying to hawk your solution every time, it's just listening. That's going to get you in the door.
Hear, hear.
Good takeaway right there. Carrie, I think you started.
Oh, I'm just agreeing. Yeah, I think that's great.
Make it about
Thanks,
the relationship first and pitch later. Matt, your take.
I also agreed there. I think you need to be part of a discussion about something much broader than your startup too. So prior to founding Vivin, I was over at Zora, the subscription billing company. I was there from nothing through IPO. I ran the global SE team. And I tell that story because when the company started, we were billing. And man, God, that's boring, right? We're just kicking out invoices. But what Team did so masterfully, and he worked for Mark Benioff way back in the day too at Salesforce, and they're just master marketers, was we wrote and evangelized the subscription economy. And that's why people wanted to talk to Zora at an early stage, was that we were the first ones out there helping you figure out what is ARR, what is LTV? Nobody defined these metrics. And even though as a small startup, we were driving such thought leadership, it didn't matter that we were small. And I think that's the same route that we've found ourselves in at Vivin, is that the world is clearly going a very, very different place. And it doesn't matter how big or small you are. If you have technology that solves a problem and you're part of, I would say, a really important thought leadership wave, that's what's going to help you not only build the right community around you, but that's what's going to help you get in the door with very, very large organizations, because it's not just, hey, you have a problem, here's my product. It's no, the world is changing. Let's talk about that.
A huge +1 on that, Matt. Before I move on to you, Elizabeth, just to give the Gong angle on this, which is very similar to what Zora did with the subscription economy. Gong did this with making decisions based on actual data from customer conversations. So when I started at Gong and needed to start creating thought leadership, we created the Gong Labs content series, which taught the world that there's all this data locked up in your customer conversations. And the data now shows us, with the right AI analysis, before AI was cool, what's actually working and not working. And that really created this groundswell of hundreds of thousands of sales professionals and sales leaders that wanted to know what's working and not working on their teams, and didn't want to use gut feelings and guesses to figure that out anymore. And that's really what helped us propel brand awareness for Gong and revenue intelligence as a category, that there is a better way than making these medieval style decisions of, well, this is how we've always sold, so this must be working. Thank you for that, Matt. Elizabeth, and then Glenn and Carrie will close us out.
Yeah, I think we're touching on something that's really about how do you take emerging technology and create a new business model, a new way of doing things, and invent something entirely new. And that's what we're doing with entrepreneurship at StartStack, is enabling founders who need to hire 30 people they can't afford. We're putting all that knowledge in a box so we can help people form their ideas, help them with their business plans, their strategy, their go-to-market, and go much further faster while protecting their equity and capital along the way. We want to bring new companies to market that are more investable and companies that are successful. So I think there's a whole world of opportunity. I think I would completely agree with Matt that when you have a point of view, Amanda has a point of view, I love it. Make it known, and people will come along. They will go uncomfortably into the future with you. That's the way.
A strong point of view from Elizabeth. You heard it here. Glenn, what's your 30-second take?
Yeah, well, basically, I actually would like to ask Amanda a question, because building relationships, I'm a strong believer in that. That's also something we try to do. But how would you be able to do that with an AI agent?
Great question. I actually think you can have a connection with an AI, which is why we moved from avatar to photo real faces, and having more emotion and tone in the conversation with the AI. I'm not trying to fool anyone. Our goal is never to clone and our goal is never to trick anyone. You always know you're talking to an AI, but you kind of let your guard down and you start having that natural conversation. And then it's the point of, we also have the ability to say, hey, now I want to talk to a person, and she could spin up a Zoom and grab someone, right? And get on and be there and pass off on the Zoom. Like we just had this conversation. So I think you still can build a relationship with an AI and have a connection, but you're not going to go buy the Bordeaux or take them to dinner, of course.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah.
We are at time. Carrie, sorry we didn't get to your take on this last
Perfectly
question.
fine.
I want
That
to
was
thank
good.
my panelists here: Amanda, the CEO and founder of OneMind; Matt, CEO and co-founder of Vivin; Elizabeth, the CEO and founder of Starstruck; Glenn, the founder and chief product officer at Expandy; and Carrie, who leads research and thought leadership at 6 Sense. Thank you so much to our audience members and for the wonderful takes here. I know we're all happy to connect with you on LinkedIn, so happy to continue the conversation there. Wishing everyone a great next session. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.